Good morning, boys and girls. This is Mr. Dennis again, and I have with me a new friend. My friend today is Aubrey. And as we spoke last time in our series about the medicine wheels, I'd like to just follow up with a quick story today about one of the legends that's told of how the Plains Indians today came to know about the medicine wheels. The story is kind of a love story, and it is a story of a young man who was helping his mother one day. And as he was helping his mother carry some things away from the fire, he accidentally fell. And he fell into the fire and his face began to burn and he had scars all over his face. From that day on, his friends, or those that were called his friends, used to laugh at him, make fun of him. Was that a good thing, Aubrey, to do? No, it wasn't. That wouldn't be very kind at all, would it? Well, little Scarface, as they called him from there on, happened to have an affection for the chief's daughter. And he had hoped one day before his accident that the chief's daughter would want to marry him. In fact, he would attend the ceremonies of the marriages, which was one of the tribal traditions where the young braves would sit around while the young maidens would dance in front of them, and they'd kind of pick out those that they thought would be beautiful brides for them in the future. Well, as Scarface sat there and he looked upon the chief's daughter, his so-called friends would chide him and say, "Yeah, go ask her to dance. I bet she'd love to dance with you." And then they'd laugh and giggle and think, yeah, there's no way that the chief's daughter would ever want to dance with you. And little Scarface, he becomes sad. And so he left and walked away by himself. He walked way out into the woods where he was all alone. And as he was sitting there, tears coming down his eyes, and he was crying, the Great Spirit came and said, "Little Scarface, I want you to take a journey. And if you are willing to take this journey, then I can promise that a great miracle will happen." Well, Scarface was excited, and he said he'd be willing to do that. So Scarface got up the next morning, packed everything he had that he needed for his trip, and took off into the mountains. And he was gone for many, many days, many moons, until finally one morning he woke up, and there in front of him stood this beautiful wheel as you see in the picture now. He didn't know what it was. All he knew is that it was made out of stones. It had 28 spokes, and there were caroms on each side. Well, little Scarface decided that he would take a nap and sleep and rest before he went down to examine this big, magical, mystical wheel that he had found. Next thing he knew, when he woke up, he was sitting inside a cave next to the wheel. And inside the cave were little people called Nanumis. Now, Nanumis is another story we can tell you later, but in this case, the Nanumis came to help little Scarface. And they told him that if they would take the chalk from the sides of the walls of the cave and put on his face and cover his face so it was all white, that a great miracle would happen if he had faith. So what do you think Scarface did, Aubrey?
Well, he probably listened to them and did it.
He did exactly that. He put that white chalk all over his face, and then they told him to go to sleep. And they said, as you sleep, a great miracle will happen. And so Scarface slept, and he wondered to himself, what could possibly happen? What would be a great miracle that could help me in my life? And then when he woke up the next morning, the little people brought to him a piece of obsidian rock, so shiny that Scarface could look inside and see his reflection. And he looked inside the mirror, Aubrey, and guess what he found?
He found no scars on his face.
That is exactly right. His scars had been healed. It was a miracle. And he knew that there was power, healing power, inside this medicine wheel. And he knew that he had to go back and tell his people about this great discovery and the importance of the medicine wheel and how the medicine wheel really did provide medicine for his people, and they could provide medicine for all of the Plains Indians that lived here. And so he journeyed back to his camp. As he came back to his camp, no one recognized him. No one recognized him except for one person. Do you know who that was?
Probably his mom.
His mom didn't even recognize him. It was the chief's daughter. And the chief's daughter recognized little Scarface, who wasn't scarred at all anymore. And she said, I know that you have been on a great mission. I know that you bring to our people something that is important, that will bless our people and help them. And I know that you are a great warrior, and therefore I want to marry you. And shortly after, Scarface and the chief's daughter were married. Scarface actually was a real person in history. Scarface became known as Red Chief, one of the great chiefs of the Sioux Nation. And whether this legend is all true, or whether we know that Chief Red Cloud had some occurrence or knowledge of these ancient medicine wheels, however it goes, we know that through some event that the Plains Indians during the 1800s came to know of the importance of these ancient medicine wheels that had been left hundreds and hundreds of years before. Now, if you enjoyed that story, I would invite you to check out the book called Scarface, or they have a new one now called The Ugly Faced Girl, which is a similar story about a young girl who also had to go through trials because her face looked so ugly, but a great miracle occurred because of the magic that occurs at the medicine wheel. Also, there is a book called Little Scarface. Little Scarface is a story of another little boy told just a little bit different, but tells the same theme. And if you enjoyed our study of the medicine wheel, a little bit about the sheep eaters and the turtle people, I would encourage you to check out, if you can, from the library, this wonderful book called The Turtle People. The Turtle People is about some young people who go to this island and actually discover who the turtle people actually were. Now, as you read that book, you'll certainly want to check out Old Turtle, the story and legend of the power of the turtle, as we talked about earlier. Aubrey is holding up another book called Maury White. This book is about the story of a young sheep eater who lived in Wyoming, and will tell you many of the historical events around that particular culture. Also, if any of you are interested in some coloring books or books that are about children your age, we have a series of books here called Mother and the Medicine Wheel, Indians, Pastimes and Games, Tools used by the early Native American tribes, and Grandmother and the Teepee. These can be all made available to you by contacting us at wtdennis@yahoo.com. We thank you for your time today and hope to see you at our next series. Until then, have a good one. And I didn't know that about Wyoming.